Yeah, I have patience. If you can open up our agenda, it should be linked to the invite. If you're not able to get it that way, if you are, that's great. You know, we can. Maybe it's fine.
I got it.
You can get it to the building.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are on. Okay. Okay, so just have a rough agenda there. You folks talking about, which is great. You can see we have attendance at the top, some resources and information. A copy of the purpose and the goal statement from our last meeting. And then kind of roughed out an agenda, but would love to, before we jump in, make sure that that feels like the right agenda for everybody. And then maybe if it feels okay, we could just do a quick through, check-in. Maybe that should be what I guess I want to make sure that feels like the right work for us today.
Right here under step 5 is what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I think the other stuff was just kind of like trying to gather purpose
Okay.
and goals and resources. And so I think that actually, yeah, if we could look at that number 5 and see if those letters feel like the right way to get us all on the same page and start talking.
So the agenda, Anna, is everything under B, it's C, D, E, and F. Is there something else? You know, that's,
Yeah. I think what I'm. H what? A to F.
I don't know if it's the right time, but I'm wondering if this group can get any information to put this insurance issue within the broader context of budget work. I know we don't have hard information, or I don't think we do, like this budget is being cut by this, but example of how this fits into the bigger picture of maybe.
Seems like it'd be really helpful. There was like, absolutely. I think Christy and I could riff a little bit on where we are right now and what current future year deficits are looking like. And how, Christy, Amy was recommending that we take a little bit of time to situate this work within the broader picture of 25-26 projections and what we're trying to close and where we are and. Sure. So a little bit of framing. Does that feel right to everybody? Mm-hmm. Maybe we start with that. Yeah. Does that sound right? Yeah. And we don't have anything prepared, but we can certainly provide some updates.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know, I might have. Actually, I was just kind of thinking, I was like, which one would work? That we've done, because we've done a lot of them, is the board update for 25-26 we're gonna talk about.
Packet.
In the packet, yeah.
Pull that out.
And then I can, share that,
I think that's right, Chris.
or just put it in the link.
Yep, you could just put your CFO update or that slide deck.
Yeah,
Yes, I think that's right.
okay,
And that
let me
guys,
do that so that people can click on it,
I think that's
and then we can go to the next thing and then come back to it in 5 minutes, and then I'll be ready.
I think that's great.
Okay.
That's perfect. Video is ready to go.
Yeah, totally. I don't mean to like derail what we're trying to do, but like just a quick to have a perspective, the size of this problem in a bigger context could be helpful.
I think that makes sense. Okay. Does the rest then look, we start with that, with Christy doing a kind of voiceover of that current state. Updates from each leadership team regarding employee priorities. I know there's a lot of surveys that have been out, so we can kind of understand what each group's looking at. Orientation for the health insurance spreadsheets, these are the original, they could give us a high level. And then at our meeting last time, we kind of made a list of additional information that would be helpful that was only in Christy compiled, so we could walk through that. And that kind of lays the groundwork. Does that all sound right? And then we'll jump into kind of talking through options. Well, let's, what Chrissy's saying, let's piece it together. Why don't we just do another quick check-in of like name and role, maybe location, and how about just a bright spot of where you're at today? Okay. We start, Anna, superintendent, right here at the DO. Bright spot of my day was that I got to spend a lot of time at Columbus High School and picking up Gayla's office, which is really nice. And it's fun to see the busyness of the office. It's really fun because that Glenwood, you can see everything. And it's not a quiet, calm place. It is calm, but it was really fun to be there. And it's really fun to meet with your students who, this is part of, I get to have lunch with high school students every Tuesday. And the more I do it, the more comfortable they become and the more, I just frank they are. And so it just gets better. And so it was really, fun conversation. That was right.
Hi, I'm Megan, I'm Salt Elementary and I'm the certified care and bright spot would just be like laughing with my students today, funny things. Second graders are so cute.
Stephanie West, I'm kindergarten at Silvers. The bright spot is that although I was out to 7 kids today, I got a lot done with 7 kids. Just kept going, one after another time. But I wrote stories with 7 kids, like, I don't know who, when people say class size doesn't matter. I'm gonna tell you, it does. 7 kids can get a lot done in a day.
Suzanne Fitzgerald, I'm the Bridges High School principal there and representing admin IBB. The bright spot of my day would be that we started a new block at Bridges today and students were like all in. First day of block is like, we get to do the first day of school 6 times. Just like exhausting as well, because they were all there today. They're like, we are so ready. We're gonna do it.
I'm Heather Fox, I'm from Noble Schools. I just came from a really great 7th grade meeting.
I'm Amy from River Elementary and I did some behavior meetings. From and Barbara has been fun and remote celebration.
I'm an actor, I teach 4th grade at Riverview, and I'm here representing RCEA. My kids, I had jury duty last week, and I got sat on as a juror. So I was gone 3 days, and I came back yesterday and today, and we were re-norming, and we figured out how to do our center rotations again. So it was like, finally like, okay, we're back, I'm here, stay, everything stays the same. Get back on time, so that felt good, so be back with the kids, and like, get our norms done after such a weird break, and then I'm gone for this week. So, there you go.
My name is Larissa Monica. I'm the Director of Custodial Services. My bright spot is that I was able to be creative in my staffing and provide minimal services to the DO and Bridges starting yesterday, so. And I'm really sorry to hear about the kiddos there at Soprist. That is on my radar. I'm gonna be sending that out. We need to get that cleaned up. So
Thank
sorry
you.
about that.
Chrissy Chacoin, finance, bright spot is just working on the work, is just continue to dig in and really, actually, this sounds really crazy, but I'm so excited to present the quarterly financials for the first time. Like, I know, that's an excitement for me. I'm really interested in engaging the board to see what their questions are gonna be and really starting to educate, everybody in IBB too, as we're starting to move forward, with these different financial goals. So that actually is positive for me, so.
I'm Gayla Rove, one of the assistant principals at Lemon Springs High School, and I was in classrooms all of first and second hour. And I started with significant needs life skills, and they do movement at the beginning. And we did all these fun yoga poses. And
I got the giggles and they were having the best time. And as soon as it was done, they were back on, they were done with their movement, and they went on. Somebody got to cross it off and they got to move on. But, and then high school math, I was in high school math a lot this morning, and I haven't been in a classroom for a while, just haven't had the chance. So it was reap the purpose. Got pulled out third, fourth, and fifth though. I had the whole day planned, but that was okay.
I'm Autumn Rivera, 6th grade science at Columbus Springs Middle School, representing the certified staff. A bright spot for me is, one of my coworkers I know was one of my former students from when I very first started teaching in this district. And so it's been fun to like help him, you know, he was a sub and now he's like taking over the position. Yeah, cool. So he comes and checks in and like, I don't know, it's just really fun to have one of your students who are your coworkers. Also, the kid said I'm not old, he's just really young, so we're gonna.
I'm Nancy Eber, I'm the student data coordinator representing the classified staff, and I work here in the district office. And the bright spot of my day was probably just conquering some tasks I had to do and feeling good about it.
Nice. I'm Stacy Pink, the Early Childhood Director at GSES, representing classified IBB. And my bright spot was we had a toddler teacher out, so that wasn't the bright spot. The bright spot was I got to fill in for them. So being with them was fun today.
That's cool.
I'm Catherine Bloomberg. I'm the Chair of Board of Education. We're doing bright spots. I'm an early childhood teacher, so my bright spot today was we have 5 little ones that we've been working on learning how to use the potty, and one of them got it today. All day. We only got peed on once today. Great.
Begonia Flat, Chief of Human Resources. It's a short bright spot yesterday, today. I was very happy to receive a call out of the blue to offer tickets for the staff for the X Games. And unsurprisingly, this form has received more responses in 24 hours. That must have our service. That's great. So if people want to go to the X Games, we'll do a raffle and we'll distribute those early next week.
Thank you all for checking in and fun to get a glimpse of every day in our district. Well, let's dive in, and maybe let's start with that financial update, and then we can kind of frame the work a little bit more with the specifics, but seeing most people are on computers, so it looks like we can track along with Christie. Does that sound okay? So we just work that way right now?
Okay.
Perfect, so.
It's hard to narrate it without that, you know, something for people to really look at and be able to ask those questions as we're going through a lot of information. So this is just a 4-page summary that we provided for the board update. That's going to be part of the board work session for tomorrow. So generally with the 24-25 fiscal deficits we're still looking at is about 5.3 million. About 2.2 million of that was budgeted. Those are one-time shortfalls that were from carryover, so that was understood. But there's still this $2.1 million issue with our budget for 24-25 that we haven't yet resolved for. We're still working on that. So yeah, there's another 1 million we have to solve for. So that's just how that kind of breaks down. We're just finalizing a plan for using some one-time savings. We are working on refining that, and that's gonna go in front of the board at the second board meeting in January. And what that's gonna encompass is a supplemental budget about how we're handling some of these things and what we had to shift. So that'll be a more comprehensive list to watch for. But for right now, big picture, we're looking at some of the things that we've been able to do, which is utilize the Meadowwood construction savings this year to help with the self-insurance issue, using some general fund balance reserves, potentially selling assets. That just really depends on where everything falls out, because we still have some things to resolve for. and other budget savings, unfilled positions, and things like that. I've got some of that information also in the quarterly financials if you wanted some more detail on that. The hope is those quarterlies are gonna provide a really good high-level summary of what we're doing to mitigate these deficits also. When we're looking at 25-26 general fund revenues right now, it's not a really great picture, looking at a $400,000 reduction at this point in time. The governor's proposal is looking at a $2.2 million increase, which is actually better than what we had discussed earlier, because we weren't sure if the governor was gonna phase in the at-risk formula this year at all, but it looks like they're estimating a 10% phase in right now. That can 18% phase in, but then we also have not incorporated in these numbers a reduction for average student count that we're still finalizing for 24-25. That will probably end up reducing that number about 100,000. So, and then looking at on the negative side, the student count for 24-25 is roughly 950,000 reduction, and then an additional 945,000 in for 25-26. So this is what happens is when you overestimate your student count in your budget, is then when you're having to make up for that, then it hits you all both in the same year. So you've got to solve for 2 years, and that's what we're seeing unfortunately with this. And then the mill levy, 713,000 over, because there was a budget error with it, and the inflation came in at about 1.5% versus 5.2% budgeted, because we're able to do an inflationary increase on the 21 mill levy only. So so there was a couple components to that. And then we are working and actually through the rest of the revenue budget now. So the good news on that, working through the rest of it, is I don't have a clear picture on exactly what that looks like, but I think we've encompassed all of the large situations and issues for the year, which is good. So there could be some other smaller things we have to discuss, such as interest earnings declining because we are using some fund balance. It's a really great example. So we have some other things we're gonna need to solve for, but they're lower magnitude than what we're talking about here. So that's actually good news. So when we're looking at the 25-26 summary for expenditures, $4.6 million, it increases what is estimated right now. We're looking at $1.5 million of that because of some budget misses and some other situations with the budget that we're trying to solve for. That is what we're going to be discussing more in the supplemental budget, and we are also using that for our 25-26 estimate also. So the additional insurance, the 1.5 million, you see right where that fits in with this committee right here on this line. And so we have a note in here, it's a target, but you know, so it depends on where this committee lands and what the district decides to do with its insurance, but that's what we're putting in here right now, and talking with the board. But they are also aware that this can change, so just so you're aware. Too, the good news, I guess, for me is with looking at all of this chaos in our budget right now, is that we're still trying to set aside $1.3 million per step for everybody. So that's really part of the goal for the next year's budget is to definitely get that included in the budget for next year. And then 0.5% increase in para. We're not 100% sure if that's gonna come down. We have heard inklings that it probably will, so we have to include it in here until we hear differently. They should be coming out with something on that late January or February, so we should know more shortly. So if you take the 400,000 from the prior slide, and that is a loss in revenue, and add that to the 4.6 million, that's how you get to the $5 million number here, if that makes sense. Okay. And then
When it says recurring, that means each year.
that's a great question. So there's one-time costs that, such as capital construction, that you have a $2 million project, you know that you're gonna have that cost for 1 year, and then you don't have to include it in the budget. But then there's things that are recurring in nature. That's mostly your salaries and benefits and some of your discretionary budgets that are allocation formulas based upon the number of students. You know that those are gonna continue year over year until you have a cut to those. So that's a really important
So
question.
how we're budgeted right now, we could continue to lose $5 million each year unless we make cuts.
That's
Okay.
That's a great, great thought. Yes, exactly. Very good point. And that's why we put that word recurring in there. So thanks for picking that up too. That's a really good sign. So what has been done to reduce the gap for 25-26? Anna, do you want to go through this slide or would you like me to?
Sure, no, I mean, we've done a lot of work in the DO on trying to figure out what we can do for immediate and recurring reductions and adjustments. And so we have dug pretty deep into our non-school based budgets to see what we could reallocate and reduce. We have determined to kind of freeze on a couple of hiring positions, transportation, and what else, transportation out there, the transportation and maintenance, had a couple of unfilled positions that are currently posted, and the teams really felt like they could work without them. That saved a lot of money this year, and then they're saying we can kind of continue that moving forward as a recurring savings. We're freezing on rehiring positions, you know, this year in the 24-25 budget, we budgeted for my old position and we didn't fill it. And we're not gonna fill it for 25-26. So that's, you know, whether that's recurring or not, how far into the future, I think we felt comfortable that we could hold the redistribution of those responsibilities for at least another year. So a little work there. But, you know, I don't know if that's gonna be recurring into the future or definitely we feel comfortable with freezing that for 25-26. Stacy's very aware and has been part of this work that we've done in early childhood around special education, where we had some grants that we were able to invest in increased staffing in early childhood special education. And we have worked over the last couple of years to figure out a structure that will maybe be more sustainable and more aligned to our goals around high quality inclusion for students. And that restructuring is actually going to end up saving us some funding, feels like a recurring cost. And so that was really important. There were discretionary budget reductions. You can see some of the teams that were saying, yeah, we can take a 20% reduction of our discretionary funding. And so all of those pieces, as we put them together, come to about an estimated savings of about $2 million internally, that help us with that 25-26 projection that now looks like we're closing that gap down to about 3.
Can you do a quick acronym?
Yes, please. I'm sorry. Yes, thanks, Autumn. Thanks for that check. So DO is just kind of your district's office operations teams. We have, you know, budgets for the DO. EC would be early childhood. The Employee Opportunity Fund is EOF. And we have been investing in that, but our usage, we feel like we can reset and adjust based on current usage. FRC has a really complex and interesting budget, and that team in particular felt that they could reduce, because have been so heavily grant funded, they have built a larger contingency or reserve.
What's FRC?
Family resources.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Family Resource Center. Okay, so yeah, so Family Resource Center really felt that they could really start using some of their reserves and that contingency to reduce the transfer that we have from the general budget to that department. So those are the departments that I think did a lot of work, and some of the significant savings came from that work. And I would say big numbers, to be honest, were really on the team reductions in terms of salaries for some of those positions that folks felt like, hey, we can hang here. Which is what got us to that 2 million. I'll name, you know, some additional support came in. Pitkin County has never really supported the Roaring Fork schools directly in terms of school resource officers or school-based mental health. And the commissioners jumped in with a investment this year that they're committing to continuing to work with us moving forward. That helped us here as well. And so, yeah, some thanks to partners on some of these pieces that got us to that 2 million from the DO. And you can see that there's still some budgets that we need to finalize. Curriculum instruction, refined early childhood, and then school resource allocations in terms of staffing levels. So still some work to do on that reduction, but we're really grateful for the teams that got us to that 2 million for 25-26. That helps that 5 drop down to 1.
Is that about the right level of information that you guys are wanting?
Does that help?
Okay, thank you.
Can I, sorry, it's Nancy and I have a question. It's, so in 2024-2025, like right now, it's deficit of 5. And then next year it's another deficit of 5, so it's really 10, but we saved 2, so now we're at 8. Yes.
Well, I mean, you saved 2 almost twice, kinda, because then some of that's gonna carry over into the next year, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's in big numbers,
Yeah.
and some of it isn't.
Yeah.
So,
But are all of our, like, the deficit for next year, I mean. Like, we haven't determined those budgets fully next year, and that's part of what we do in bargaining is like figuring those things out, so. Like I was thinking about health insurance, like we can make up some of that money in health insurance if we're changing, you know, the amount of money that we're asking employees to pay, right?
well, the problem is that we've already assumed in here, and we'll go through the slides, the lowest possible plan, for at the employee only level. So it's a pretty low bar we've put into this budget so far. And that's the difference, the work of this committee is to look at that and see if that we can live with that for a year. And what we're gonna need, or what we're gonna need to do, because it's not like we're assuming we're staying in PPO 7 in this. I mean, we've had to take it down to HDHP 5. And so that's a big reduction for employees, and so, you know, and I'm just gonna come out and name it. I mean, that's tough. And so I would say that that's one of the top 2 problems with, or concerns with the budget. The second one is just looking at, you know, all the cuts. I mean, the health insurance is huge.
And then, so another, okay, this may be. I'm not fully understanding how we got into this situation in the first place, but, if. Part of the reason we got into this situation was because we budgeted for health insurance, for health costs. Those costs are one time essentially, once they get paid, they're done, and now we're on to our new insurance, and then, you know, how that gets dealt with. But it's like those costs that cause whatever 5 million, 5.7 million or whatever that we had. Those are not continuing costs.
I love where you guys are going with this. Some of the questions about recurring, what's not recurring, how is this all impacting us? The best way that I can explain this is to say that we had $875 per employee as the employer contribution for a couple of years. And so what happened was, when we went to the self-insurance plan, there was an expectation that that plan was going to be able to stay within those costs that were $875 per employee per month. What happened was that was not true. Those costs actually significantly escalated because the amount of utilization was significantly underestimated, as well as the administration of that plan was significantly underestimated, and the inflation for health insurance itself was not in there either. And so what happened is we went from in 22-23, we were at 875 roughly, maybe added 6% of that, right? And then now for 24-25, that stayed at 875, no inflationary adjustment for increases in health insurance, no adjustment for the increase in administrative costs or anything that's going on in health insurance world. So then now we had to rebase our plan for CEBT based upon these really high escalating costs. And so they bid us at these higher premiums, because what happened is now that's the only way they can bid those costs, is because now we've run up our plan, because our plan design, because there was no deductible for employee, or no, excuse me, no out-of-pocket cost for employees when they went to doctors and things like that. So the cost and utilization went up. And so then because of that utilization cost going up, and because the rates were maintained for 2 years, which I would argue they probably shouldn't have been. So there was no inflationary increase in, the impact to employees is 30%, and the employer contribution for 25 to 26 is roughly 30%, because you're making up for 2 years there. And so that's where it becomes recurring, even though we're coming to a new plan design, that actually feeds right into what CBT is gonna charge us, because they're not gonna, like, give us some sort of an estimate that they're gonna lose a bunch of money for all of their trust for this year either.
Okay, I understand that, but what I guess I'm getting at is, okay, so we are in the hole for, a significant amount of underestimated costs that we have to pay out for health insurance. Which I would argue right along with you that the $0 copays probably had a lot to do with that. And if we had had the, insurance, we'd had the Marathon Health Clinic continuing in the first place, that may not have, because the whole reason that was offered was because that was taken away. And, I know you weren't here, but I think that was probably the source of that. Let's have $0. And yes, that's, in the past, that's always been something that's increased, employee usage. I just don't think that was a smart decision in the, in hindsight, but anyway, it was nice to be able, but of course it's gonna increase your cost, but anyway, we have these bills that we have to pay. The bills are things that have, if I'm understanding this correctly, people have already gone and got their MRI or had their broken bone set or whatever. They went to their doctors for whatever thing. Our insurance, our previous insurance plan paid out for that, which is basically us paying out for that. Once that's all paid off, that's done, right?
Yes.
It's just going forward, it's the amount of money we pay out to CEBT that they now pay for us, right? They're assuming that risk. I understand that, but so that's where I'm kind of wondering about the recurring part, is like, we have to pay a big bill.
Yeah.
And that big bill, once it gets paid, it goes away.
Yeah.
I understand that there will be a change in the amount of money that we're asking the district and or employees to pay into insurance, but that money is not recurring. Right?
It is,
But
no,
insurance costs.
The insurance costs are, but the amount of money that the bill that we are having to pay, whatever amount of money it is that we are having to pay to self-insure us. That's hopefully done. I know it's still, still have to pay it, but people are not adding to that anymore because we've switched back to CBT. Whatever that amount of money was, we won't have to pay that once we've paid all that off. Right? So that's why I'm talking about it not being a recurring cost. I understand
yeah,
that the money that we have to put into insurance is changed. I understand that CEBT is charging us more because now they're assuming the risk.
yeah.
And in the future, they may continue to charge us more if we're not careful about how we dial down utilization. But the money, part of our problem will go away when that money is paid off,
Yeah,
right?
it's almost like, yeah, because everything was put so much in arrears because that problem that bubbled up to the surface that we were actually deficit spending and didn't even know it for 23, 24, and 24, 25, because our premiums were not sufficient to cover what our losses and claims were and administrative costs. So that we're kind of catching up. So that is one time, kind of catch up for 23, 24, and 24, 25.
So does that affect the overall outlook as like looking forward a couple of years?
So, so I think from CBT's perspective, like looking at the rates we see at CBT, what my hope is, it all depends on, of course, inflation for the medical industry overall, and all those kind of dynamics, which I really don't know what that's gonna do. But my hope is that we can start to tick down some of our usage rates so that we can be in the lower brackets with CBT, and maybe even, I don't know if we have the autonomy to do that this year for 25, 26, but maybe into 26, 27, if we could show them rates or our utilization is lower, but maybe we can start to negotiate that down. But it's probably a year out from that kind of negotiation.
I know just in the past, we have been able to do that by implementing several things like, paying people to go elsewhere, to go Lady of Grand River or something like that, or, you know, put the healthcare blue book, like putting that out to everybody, like educating people on that, or, the Marathon Health Clinic, help decrease costs. So I know that that has been an issue for us in the past, and if we can implement those kind of things again, surgery plus, you know, like those kind of things have helped us in the past, and so I do think that future discussions even for next year should include those things, if those kinds of things that I know CEDT, but they were the ones who brought it to us and said, you know, we can do this to decrease costs or whatever, so I'm hoping that they are continuing to be open about that, providing those kind of resources to help us decrease our costs.
Yeah, I think that they are.
Yeah, for sure, and you'll see some of, I mean, you guys, we asked for some of that information from it, and all the ones you just named, Megan, are definitely part of the current plans. And you're right, the more we would push those to say, if you have an elective surgery and you're willing to use surgery plus, like, there won't be, I think, a deductible, like.
No, I had my kids' tonsils taken out for free,
Okay, right,
and an emergency that went along with it, that would have cost us like $40,000-50,000. I had to go to Denver. But it's in tonsils, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, you
Yeah.
can schedule that kind of thing.
yeah, sure, and you're right, like, if we lean in and push and promote those, they will have impacts on our overall expenditures.
Christy, can I ask? I'm having a hard time, like, what is our deficit right now, 24-25? Not thinking about 25-26. Like, where are we in the hole right now? Cause I hear the 5 million for 25-26, but I know we're still in the hole right now. And how are we handling that, or is that gonna be added to the 5 million if we can't figure out how to take care of it before next school year?
That's a very, very great question, because these are recurring deficits, so what happens with 24-25, you know, is the same issue we have until it's resolved, is gonna be in 25-26. So because we're putting 2 different years out there, it's almost like the same problem we're trying to resolve for.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
talking like the missing, like the not budgeting for going to high school that we had to cover
Yeah.
instead, and transportation.
Custodial.
Because so like all of that, like where is that putting us right this minute in the hole?
So, okay, so when you look at, and so I'm just gonna break it down really simply because there's a lot of components around this, okay? So I don't wanna get too much in the weeds because I wanna make sure, you know, we're not taking too much time. But it's 5.3 million is where we're at right now for 24-25. Okay? Then you take off the 2.2 million that we budgeted for, that was carryover. That's one time, so that should be included in that. So then when you take the 5.3 minus the 2.2, you get to 3.1 million, okay? I know I glossed over that a little bit, but right now, we've resolved for roughly $1 million of that. And we have another $2 million issue we're still trying to resolve. Bob,
And so if not resolved, going into next year, we're really 7 million.
no, what would happen is that our fund balance would deteriorate even further. And we
Okay.
would go to minimum, like below minimum fund balance, because, and so that's what would happen. I mean, it would involve like, you know, discussions with the board on sale of assets. It would involve, you know, like just conversations around other budget cuts necessary, that kind of thing. So, yeah, because it's gonna be there until we resolve.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
For the minimum fund balance, what is, how much are we paying back? Is that budgeted into 24 or 25, 26? So if we are taking money out, my understanding is that we have to pay it back once we go under a certain amount. Are we, if we can't resolve for that 2 million or 1 point whatever million? Is that gonna dip below the minimum and are we gonna have to pay that back? So it will be in the budget for 25, 26, but just, it will look a little different.
Yeah, it would, well, you know, I understand your point because, yeah, I mean, and that becomes. I mean, okay, so the fund balance, the minimum fund balance, that's a really great question. Yeah, we would have to still pay that back somehow. you know, that 2 million until, like, so then it becomes a one-time problem. But it doesn't add to the recurring problem. That's what I'm saying, yeah, right. But yeah, you still have that one-time problem there until you resolve it some way, shape or form. And I would not recommend we lower the fund balance further because we've been, we're gonna get hit with our auditors tomorrow on that, and then, plus state loan program. So we are getting fairly low, on our fund balance, and then we are trying to get, utilize that to that minimum fund balance, but not lower, which is really hard in a complicated system. So we're trying to just hit that right at.
And minimum fund balance is also called reserves, right?
Correct.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, no, vernacular is everything, so I know, I appreciate you guys.
And the minimum fund balance is 10 million?
I gotta check on that, let me check on that, I think it's roughly 10, but then we also have to add in the 2.9. But then I think it was 9.6 plus 2.9. It's somewhere in the 12 to 12 and a half million range.
That's like minimum.
Weaver requires 3%.
Yeah.
And then our board policy states another 10% of our total budget. So that's a moving target depending on the size of the total budget. To slightly. So I always think about 13%, and then our budget's usually around 100 million, so somewhere in that 12 to. That's super rough, I know, Kristen.
Yeah.
No, let's give you an accurate answer on anything else to that.
So like roughly 12 and a half-ish.
And currently, have we been using our reserves to, like you said, there was 1 million that we've resolved for, do we use some of the funds to do that?
So far, right now, if you look in the quarterly financial report too, there's on the general fund revenue page, there is some, information on there that, summarizes how we have solved for the self-insurance issue. And there's $900,000 use of fund balance in there, for, 24-25, and roughly $1 million, from 23-24. So there was like, I think it was 1.9 million that we were using on fund balance, right now for that issue, to resolve for that issue. So we're pretty close to a minimum.
I was about to ask, what, after using that, we're pretty close.
Well, the minimum was based off of our budget, but our budget was incorrect, so are we sure that the minimum is correct?
Yeah.
Good question.
I think that's the best benchmark that we have until we resolve that and I think that the answer to that is yes, because when you look at the 25-26 budget, okay? And you compare that with 24-25, I'm only saying we're 400,000 difference between the two budgets. That's not material, really. So I would say that is gonna be a good benchmark to start with our 25-26 fund balance.
I see, I understand the state said that 3%, who determines if the board needs it at 10% in the reserves?
That is a board discussion, that really centers around, just what is best. I mean, what's a good practice to have in your fund balance, first of all. Second of all, looking at cash flows, looking at, what our bond rating would be, as far as, for future ability for us to bond. What is gonna give us a reasonable cushion, especially given things like a great example of a policy decision that should impact fund balance is the governor's proposal not to include averaging in our student count.
What does that mean?
Averaging in the student count.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's what it does is it really helped during COVID when we lost a lot of kids. Instead of the state paying us for the exact number of kids that we had in October count, they actually took an average of our previous 5 years October count. And so when we had that drop of kids during COVID, it meant that we didn't see a very fast drop for people. And I think when we the loss of averaging will be really damaging to small districts that are experiencing decline. Because what it requires you to do is to be really tight on where your investments are, because you don't you don't wanna overshoot and over budget. Because one, we can't, because of contractual commitments, we can't cut teachers in October if the kids didn't show up. And we have yet to do what, you know, like the DPS does, which will say, oh, Megan's school has less kids, we're pulling a teacher from her school and taking over Goni's school has got more, and you don't really have a say in that, they just move. We don't have to do that.
Yeah, why isn't that a violation of
I
law?
don't know how they do that, but I know that that is often done for the districts, and they just need staff, I don't know how that works, but we haven't done that, so it means that. And I think that's probably gonna, I'd be surprised if it doesn't, it doesn't, what do I wanna say, I would be surprised if that doesn't change. Rapidly. I just, it's not common in schools, in states. So we're bracing for that.
So when it comes to reserves. And I know, let's see, in D. On the agenda, updates from each leadership team. I assume that means us. Re-employee priorities. Like, one of the things we hear from our teachers a lot is, what is the reserve fund for, if it's not for these kind of things, and, I think. I understand what you're saying, and I know this is not all you, because this is board. You know, Katie, you're obviously a board rep, but you're only one, so, I wonder why reserves is not being more heavily relied on for this kind of thing. I understand there's this like recurring thing that, you know, reserves are not a recurring thing, but that's something we just hear from our constituents a lot is use reserves, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
Well, reserves shouldn't be there, just stay in the bank, like you're supposed to use them. I mean, I understand, you know, there should be a minimum, but that's what we're hearing from people.
You know, I think it's a great, push that a lot of people ask that question about reserves, what the importance is, and, you know, what I hear from the auditors versus, you know, like what you guys are seeing is like, why do we need 10 million? That seems like a lot, you know, and I think that it might, this is beyond probably the scope of today, but maybe consider some more education around that and conversation about where fund balances come from, the importance of fund balance, and how, I mean, like, consider that if we were in this financial crisis, that we saw that $6 million reduction, and we didn't have those reserves, what kind of position we would be in. I mean, so it creates a financial buffer that improves the physical health of the organization, and it allows for a lot less reactiveness in the, you know, a lot less reactiveness in the organization's ability to retain costs in the short term, instead of having to cut costs right away. That can really be impactful to an organization. So there's definitely a fine line with how low you want to go, how low do you go, that I would be open to a discussion on.
And what I'm seeing right now is that there are things that are being done, like, we're asking people to cut, we're asking different things to go. And if we still have an unaccounted 1 million, I don't see why, like, I feel like we've done due diligence of like, not being like, oh gosh, let's just dip into the reserves, take that money, like, let's solve the problem, let's be slow and methodical about this. And if we still can't get it resolved, I don't see why we wouldn't use our reserves for that. And I guess that also goes into a question of like, what is the plan to get the rest of that money accounted for and resolved for?
And I would say that like, it's still, the work that we're doing right now is really around that, trying to pull those pieces together, and, you know, the audit conversation that's about to happen tomorrow and on the 29th helps us. There's obviously gonna be lessons learned that shape our practice moving forward. but it helps our finance team kind of close 23, 24, and allows Christy to have some time and space to start digging a little deeper into the 24, 25. And so we have to get that off the table. Our hope is that by that budget summit at the end of the month, the IBB conversation about the budget, that we'll be able to say, look, here's the plan. And, you know, we're planning that by the 29th, 27th board meeting, 29th board meeting, we are bringing forward a supplemental budget that will say, this is how we're gonna address the 24, 25 deficit. And, so I would say that's our push, is to see if we can get that dialed by then. By continuing to scrub the current year's budget, now that the audit is gonna be able to close the books on 23, 24. As we continue to wrap our heads around, I'm looking at Nancy, because this at-risk funding roller coaster that we're on has a lot, Nancy's been deeply, part of this with the CDE. And we have a better sense of that for this year, so I think there's still a lot that's coming into focus in the next couple of weeks. Does everybody feel like we can have a fair degree of uncertainty to continue, keep going, is that okay? Chrissy, thank you, and thank you for that, that was really helpful. So, you know, and actually it's nice to have that financial update, because where we are is that asterisk, and I think, you know, the task of the team is to see, what can we recommend as we represent employees and the needs of our employees, what can we recommend to the board, in terms of health insurance benefits, given where we are, given what we're trying to close. You can see that just to work with numbers, Christy and I baked in that additional 1.5, which would mean an HD, you know, that the decision would be an HDHP per employee that is covered 100% and nothing else is covered. We need to grapple with that. And so I think that's kind of our work. So does it sound okay to do a check-in with certified classified admin IBB on what kind of the outcome? I know we kind of did this with certified, but it'd be nice to hear it again. Priorities from your surveys, takeaways, ahas, what was top of mind for your team? Does that sound okay? I know classified, because we were working on it last week, has some really great info.
We haven't had access to hers, but we could look at them and sure.
Ooh, do that, you want
You
that?
have the order.
Okay, can you get that?
Yeah.
All the admin, and how about you guys go last?
Oh,
Is that okay? I'm sorry.
no,
Okay, so I wonder, certified, do you start? Is that okay? Yeah. Just like an, like high level overview, and then Nancy, Stacy, we can go to classified, and then Amy can go to.
My team, I'll share it again with you for your personal reasons real quick. Okay, so big things that we have taken away is that I have a lot of notes that I haven't looked at in a month, so it's not to find them. I think to start, the majority of people found the current price point that we're at an acceptable price point. People are okay with what they're paying in for their PPO 6, PPO 7, HDP. The majority of class or certified staff are happy with the healthcare options. We're good with that. I think what we see the most is that the family health plans are not serving our family. They're
Yeah, because
Go
you
ahead.
say more about why, is it
Yes.
cost, or is it the actual
Yeah.
services?
So it's mostly the cost, and it's primarily the cost per family. I think also a little bit of the services don't quite match what families want or need, but I think the cost is their biggest issue. Most of the people who opt out of our district health insurance, it's because either their spouse has better coverage or that the family plan is just unaffordable and they can't afford it. and they opt to go to another insurance option. We asked follow-up questions regarding why teachers have opted out of the health insurance if they have a spouse and a family. It was a free response, but some of the responses were that the family plan is too expensive for teachers. I had 26 respondents say that. A spouse's family plan is better and cheaper. 7 respondents said that, or the family has put their children on Medicaid or open market insurance. The main priority of respondents is to have lower co-pays. About 87 people or 42% of our survey respondents said that they would like to have lower co-pays. The second priority would be improving family plan rates. And the third priority would be to lower the cost of premiums. The third priority would be to lower the cost of premiums. Yeah.
Diana said lower copay, she doesn't mean lower them from now, she means like the priority is to have lower-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Negative copays, you pay us.
So it's obvious that teachers would like to keep lowest copays possible. We want to keep prices for the insurance around the same price point. Seems like people are happy with that. Keep plans that offer similar, if not the same, healthcare coverage. We would also like to explore more options that will benefit family plans. And explore options that will help employees save money surrounding copays, deductibles, and premiums. So that's kind of a big overview.
Any questions, clarifying questions?
Your survey, would you rank the if we're choosing between some hard options, monthly cost of copay, amount of benefits, deductible, is there a ranking?
Yeah, we did ask a couple questions that go into that. I have to find the question in the full.
Yeah, I know you don't have to go.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if the
Yeah.
survey staff did any prioritization.
We did do priority and we asked what specific aspects of the health insurance do you think should be prioritized? Our top ones were lower copays. The second one was family plan rates and then a lower cost.
And Nina, I don't know if you.
Yeah.
You said that there was a question we asked, what range of copay would be acceptable for you?
Yeah.
75% of our respondents said the lowest amount, which was $10 to $30. Then $40 to $50, 42. 42%. Percentage wise there.
Let me check on the actual spreadsheet.
153 out of our respondents said 10 to 30, 86 said 40 to 50. And then a very small majority said 50 and above would be acceptable.
Which is around the price points that we currently have offered.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you for sharing this spreadsheet, but if you could share it with us as editors, we could look at the graphs.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. Last slide. Give a little background on ours. We did a 3-question survey. We felt like kind of keeping it short and simple and gauging it off of things that we could maybe control. We did notice, you know, we wanted to ask all the questions like, what's important to you, a lower copay? How much would that copay be? But we felt like it may be out of our control. So we felt like we didn't want to offer false hope and say like, would you want a 0 copay versus a $40 copay when we may not have control over that? So we kept ours 3 questions pretty simple. As far as insurance takeaways, the majority of the classified staff ranked that, family plan costs and co-pays were their top priorities. We had about 117 people answer our survey. And then the priorities that came back, we kind of said going into the 25-26 school year, what would be your top priority as far as like health insurance, job security, those kind of things, and the top priority was job security and compensation. But when it came to insurance, it was a no-cost plan. And we did the same thing, it was like a ranking system, like most important to least important out of those things.
I forgot to mention certified staff, we had 216 respondents. 216.
Any question for a classifying team?
We have access to the spreadsheet of responses, but what I'm hoping to have is be added as a collaborator. Shows that you will have response.
In the table one, and
I'm transferring ownership to you on the responses.
not the response.
It's not
you want the
there.
Google form.
No, I haven't.
You got it now, okay.
She just got it.
I'm gonna show you. Okay, we got it.
Yay.
She got, this is like super fast. data
Yes,
analysis.
Look at that. So we looked at this within a broader context during the leadership team meeting when we were looking at a variety of ways we can be providing savings to the district. And so through our lenses as leaders, we had some different priorities that were
We're in the right place.
No.
No? Oh, sorry.
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 Anna can see this. So we were looking, we talked about things like maintaining overall compensation for all of our employees, with whom we work, maintaining current staffing ratios, things like that. It looks like our group ranked compensation, we went first. Compensation. Benefits as like a big umbrella second.
David, what was second?
Benefits.
What was under the benefits umbrella? Did you, how did you term it a big umbrella, or what do you mean?
We
by that?
just wrote benefits.
Oh,
That was
okay.
all that was put on there, was benefits,
Yeah.
Okay.
no descriptive.
What's hard about this survey is that, compensation and benefits in my mind go hand in hand, because if you don't get the compensation, it's because you're gonna be paying in the benefits.
That's right.
So for me, it's very hard to separate those two things.
Yeah,
So
a
they're
lot
the
of
top.
people, benefits is, at least in our experience, benefits is like so broad, like people are thinking bus pass,
Right.
pool pass, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
And you guys said compensation for all employees.
All employees.
Okay.
And then we've ranked some benefits. Again, not looking through the lens of just our admin group, but the whole group. And it looks like some priorities were the cost of living, like getting this stuff. calendar.
Housing.
Can you speak to what do you mean by the calendar? Like number of days, okay.
School year calendar, paid time off.
But the top two were the annual step and health insurance. Was the two.
Oh, it's hard to, okay.
Then we would drill down a little bit on health insurance.
What was the second one, Heather?
Health insurance.
Thank you.
And our highest priorities were a no-cost plan. Right, am I reading this right?
Yeah.
Cost of
Yep.
copay.
Well, yeah, what is no, cause no cost plan, I mean, you're talking about
There's no
premiums,
premium.
co-pays, what are you talking-
Premium.
There's a.
So the amount of money that comes out of your paycheck.
Yeah.
Right. Thinking about, okay,
Right.
the premium.
Copay. Exactly.
What was the second?
More on the
Okay.
copay.
Or something copay.
Low
Will you
copays.
speak more about the deductible?
All it says is deductible.
Yeah. Cost of plans.
Okay.
We were like.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were trying to tie some of your each other stuff.
I think
So it's keeping that low, not increasing.
Yeah. Making it so huge that it's true. Because if you make your deductible huge, it really truly becomes a catastrophic. That's it, catastrophic insurance, and that's it.
Yeah. It's already huge the way it is.
But when you have catastrophic, like. It's, I mean, you know.
I think we've been in this, in our Marine Corps School District insurance bubble for so long. When I talk to people who don't work for the district about their insurance.
Yeah.
It's always so much lower, they're like, what, I think mine is like, I'm on the lowest plan, so I think my deductible is like 6,000 or 7,000, something like that, I mean. Other people comparable to my sort of plan in other fields. Of like $1,000 deductible or something, and their co-pays are like $10 to go to the, and they've been like that consistently for years. And so I think we tend to like, explain it away, but we are already so far out of the norm. That I think we're like, we have had so much damage done to ourselves because of that. Do you know what I mean,
This
when I
kind
say
of- yeah,
damage?
yeah. Well, we used to have this discussion when I was on IBB about, we talked about Kaiser. My two districts I taught in 25 years ago when I was on Eastern Slope. Yeah, I had Kaiser. I mean, I literally paid $20 to have one child, my first, who's almost 30, and $25 to have the second 5 years later. So, you know, Kaiser, they have Kaiser over there, so that was an option for all of us to have. And so when I came here 25 years ago, I was a little shell shocked. So, you know, I think it's again, also our area. I think that still has to be one of the things that we've got to continue to push. Summit County, Macon County, and us, because we're just ridiculous.
And it's the norm for us now,
And it's the norm.
which is wrong.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I've said this a little bit, I was even talking to Two Rivers today, and they got like a 10 to 12% increase on their CEBT rates this year. When I talked to superintendents from RCO 16, RE2, Aspen, who all use CEBT, they were all anywhere from 10 to 20% of an increase on their CEBT rates from last year. Yeah, there is a broader context. But I think, right, was why we thought self-insurance could be an alternate pathway.
I wanted to add one more piece to the teacher, and I just to get it down. There was a big push to support, if possible, more mental health when we do that, making that a priority. I know that we might have to take all of it, but I think that's what I. More than just the like free or however many free sessions, but like really support them now.
Thanks for taking notes on the admin, sorry about that. Does everybody feel like we have a kind of a sense of where the teams are at and ready to keep going?
I'm kind of looking at this, and I wonder if we kind of come up with a team priority, because I see a lot of similarities between all of these. I think we all said lowering co-pays. That's one thing that all three groups looked at. I see certified and classified, both said family plan rates. And both classified and admin said maintaining a no cost. I'm looking at those three, those feel like three good priorities that will kind of help us frame moving forward.
That's great. Yeah, anybody else see anything else that feels like?
We did. The no cost fund.
Yeah, we did,
Yeah.
you did. Did you guys?
For the employee, yeah.
And again, not maintaining a low cost, but a no cost.
A no cost, one no cost.
One that might be a high deductible. something like that.
I mean, that's, you know,
What it costs.
I mean,
I see it.
I'll leave it, right, that, it's interesting, like the no cost plan for employees, and I want to I'm glad that we're lifting that up, but I feel like that has been something that I feel like gained from years of health insurance negotiations with the teachers union to make that a priority, and it has almost become part of the identity of this district plans. You know what I mean? But that's not, like, that's a choice, right, that we've made and inherited in that commitment, and so I do think that, you know, maybe this goes back to Megan, one of the comments you made earlier, like that, yes, there is a world in which we could say, all we're offering as a health insurance is $800 to the plan of your choice, you make up the rest. But that's not what we've done. Anyway, I just want to stamp that that's something that has been worked for.
Can I add on piece to that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because we both been IBB for a while, but I think the no cost plan was also coupled with, and you can't opt out. So if you weren't going to allow people to opt out, you absolutely had to offer a no cost plan. And it sounds like in these last couple of plans, people were then allowed to opt out. So is that sound accurate from that plan? Okay.
And I think when we get into it, we can talk about, I think that question came up, whether 100% enrollment would reduce our costs. And I think we can speak to that when we get into the details. I really appreciate you pausing to look at some similarities. Anything else we want to grab or discuss about team priorities before we move on? Let's then jump to, I wonder, you know, we have this original slide deck, and I feel like we were hoping for a little bit of an orientation to some of the crazy documents. And so I'm wondering what would be most helpful? Do we want to have, like, Christy walk us through these materials to explain what we're looking at in these? What makes more sense? What would be most helpful, I think? Do we understand the gist of what CEBT offers and what our choices are, or do we need to have kind of, and I guess I'm in the slide deck and I'm really talking about slides. Am I talking about 20 and 21? Or maybe the rate comparison slides? Would that be most helpful to have Christy with like voice over 12 and on?
That's where my questions are.
Yeah. Okay, could we start there with slide 12? And I wonder if Christy, you can just kind of talk us through and we can all jump in with questions if we look at them. But okay. And I realized when I just said that, but I don't think I got it in my note. One of my other homeworks was to make this clearer when I didn't do it. So I'm gonna work on that while Christy's doing a voiceover. Is that okay? And I'll try to print these out because I can't read them and I can't even read them online.
The last question.
Is that right? Is anybody able to read them online there? I think. Like, I think I've got it.
I can read on this one. Online.
Okay, I'll work on that one, so kind of maybe taking us through.
So you guys want me to start on slide 12? Does that sound?
If you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the real summary slide to show how much of additional employer contribution based compared to the current rate that each one of these would cost the school district. And so, the first one assumes that the district's covering all added costs for employers and, you know, for it, excuse me, for the employee, including the family only, just like similar to what we did for 24-25 into 25-26. No additional cost to the employee. And that would be about 3.5 million, and about a 48% increase. It's huge. Then when you look at pretty much like just using the same plan design that we have right now, that the district covers PPO 7 employee only, and then the employees would pay for their family, additional family coverage, that would cost an additional 2.6 million. And that employer contribution would be 1,185 or about a 35% increase.
And that's 2.6 on top of the 8 we already have to make up.
Yeah, that's in addition to what we currently pay.
Okay.
Yeah, which is about which is based upon the $875 per employee per month cost. Yeah. So then looking at the PPO 8 as an option, which is a new plan, that one, and you can see the plan designs below, but that one would be the 2.1 million, an additional cost, or about 30%, and then HDHP 5 is roughly 1.5 million in additional costs and 1,052 per employee per month. And that would assume also that the employees are covering the additional costs of the families or employee plus plans. So,
Or what plans, we start?
the family, employee plus spouse, employee plus child, you know, I call them the employee plus plan.
Can you go over, I'm sorry, the difference between the top two lines again?
The top two, sure.
It covers all added costs for 25-26.
Yeah, so that's like what we did this year is we covered everybody's cost for family, the additional cost for employee plus plans as well. So we actually increased the employer's contribution one time for 24-25 because we didn't want anybody to have a cost addition for this year because we're already in our contracts. So
That's not representing an option, that's representing what we already have to do. And the next three are options, if we continue.
Well,
Well, if we did what we're doing right now, that would be the 48.3% increase. That I understand that way.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Got it.
Is it increase from what we paid at self-insurance or is it increase?
No, from self-insurance, that $875. And the only difference between what we paid as CBT previously was about a 6% increase. Between 22 and 24 when we started the play or the self-insurance plan.
The increase from CBT to self-insurance is only 6%.
That was for the employer contribution.
Oh.
And then employee contributions reduced.
Okay.
But yeah, so does that help with kind of the context, just from a big picture? Is that, everybody thumbs up, is that making sense? Okay, great.
I like that. I like that. That helps.
Oh,
I guess that's
good. Yeah,
That's fine.
you gotta check in with finances, because when you see that glazed over, or people are starting to get a little, like wiggling in their seats, you're like,
Yeah. Thank you.
okay. So then, did you guys want me to go through anything with, some of the other detail by plan, or, is that really what you wanted to start with? I wanna make sure I'm getting the right amount of information.
So in the first slideshow, we looked at the 1.5 million increase for recurring costs out of the 5, that's if we went with option number 4 here.
Correct. Yeah, which is pretty impactful to employees. I mean, I'm not gonna hide that or say
Yeah,
it in
just
any
wanted to make
way,
that
except
clear.
for I don't like that option.
Right. That's why I asked. I wanna make
Yeah.
it clear.
So,
Is there a place that looks at 7 is our current base plan, right?
I know.
Is there, do you have a slide that like looks at that next, right next to HD? 5?
Alright. That's the base plan.
I looked at rate comparisons for each one of the plans based on what we currently do. I mean, we could piece that together to get to something else that could compare. You know, the two.
On the back of the sheet.
And what kind of a comparison, are you talking about, or, oh, sorry.
Talking about the things that we are hearing from our constituents, which is how the co-pays differ, how does the deductible differ, how do the premiums differ? Right next to each other, like I was thinking it's kind of hard to see it, looking back and forth, oh, what I'm saying. Yeah. Essentially, if this compared to what?
2 pages instead of front
This
back.
is what would it be next year?
I think that, yeah, we can start the right ones first. Christy, am I right? What we're looking at is, what we wanna see is those. Well, I mean, our options, right, are like 06, 07, 08.
Are those our only options, but it's not.
Well,
Maybe
the
HDM
HDM
5 on the other side.
That's what that means, so lowest
Yeah.
on side 12 was.
Yeah.
I'm just wanting to see like, how does it impact, we're talking about it being an impact to employees. And it's gonna impact all employees, obviously, but you know, we're hearing from so many employees across all constituencies that they wanna keep this low cost premium, no cost premium. And so I wanna see compared to the plan that we currently have. That is the no cost plan, which is that they currently, how does that compare to next year's HDAP 5, which is what I hear you implying maybe that maybe the best place for us to go to save as much money as we can. Obviously, I know, it's not the best, but I'd like to see how those two compare.
With the benefits we have.
Yeah. Yeah, mainly it's those 3 financial things, I mean. We don't have a lot of people going on, like X-ray costs, lab costs. Low or whatever.
Yeah,
That's
that's
next
next,
year.
the HP 5, if you look at the HP 5. Megan.
Yeah.
You can see the significance if you go down, that basically. Everything you do is deductible.
Yeah.
This is like a catastrophic,
Right.
and the deductible is what?
Even the
10, 20.
It's deductible
Close
is
5,000.
5 and 10.
5 small times.
Yeah.
You have to hit that even with doctor's copays. And in meds and everything, so that's.
Well, in addition to that this,
Oh, that's information.
the CBT clinic is not included as no cost with the, I think there is a lower cost with the.
It's a $45 per visit copay for the CBT clinic for the HD HP 5. Can I ask, what is 0% in and 40% out, or 20% in, 40% out? What does that mean?
Work in network.
In and out of network.
So you, yeah.
So, I mean, the amount of total cost, if you look at the deductible, single and family is the same. When you look at, let's see here, out of pocket maximum, it's the same. It's a matter of that you're having to pay your deductible first with the HDHP 5, and that the clinic is not included for free. Those are the two in place. I mean, the biggest ones.
With that usage rate, do they look at how much you use the clinic?
Yeah, well, they did in the past,
They
yeah.
would use that.
30%.
I think the high deductible plans are a very hard sell if you need to go to the plan.
Yeah, we're gonna have like you just hear employees saying. Like, I won't go to the doctor because it's too much. I'm gonna come to school sick, I can't go anywhere.
It would be an easier sell if the clinic visit for free.
But
It seems like we should look at
Yes.
Do you have information on how many people are currently enrolled in the high deductible plan?
Well, we got it on here, actually. Let me switch slide it is.
Do we have an HDHP 5 right now?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, let me see. I thought I put it in here.
And
Yeah,
I think the reason, the high deductible was like all messed up, I thought I had the number when you had it, with like Mary Ann's happy, and then I thought it was not an option. Provided it's
So
not.
currently, we have 16 employees who chose a high deductible plan.
16.
16,
And is the reason that they chose that because they want an HSA?
most likely.
Oh. Because you
Or
get
they're like
HSA,
very young and healthy and single, and they
Which
just.
is at a different,
Or they have different plan,
different kind of plan than most of our employees are on.
No,
Look at that.
It's really different.
It's way different. I mean, I remember, we brought the HSA in when I was still on IBB with Nikki.
So the other plans don't come with an HSA?
We have an estimate of, so I'm looking at slide 3, 5 million, we're using the DHP. We have an estimate if we go with the PPO fleet, I'm sure that we do, I'm sure it's not set somewhere.
I think it's that slide 12.
Slide 12 and the other slide.
Is that? Okay, so it's, is that right, what others asking, is where we, in the financial updates, where we're estimating 1.5 is like the target, that correlates with slide 12 and the health insurance. That 1.5 is if we only did HDHP, and if we wanted to go to PPOA, what we would be seeing is an additional $600,000 added to that 25-26 deficit.
That's correct.
So then you got to.
Additional $600,000. Yeah, we're comparable offset. Yeah. In 25-26.
Is there a limit on how many plans we can choose? Three. Okay.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, as a suggestion is that PPO 6 is probably, over, like it's cost too much.
Yeah, I
It's
feel like
really
when
not
I
nice.
was on I was on a committee that decided to cut it.
But it'll be really expensive.
Because it just has better rates.
Can I ask a really?
Yeah, it's because of lower deductibles. That's lower co-pays. Yeah.
How come in every one of them? In the 24-25, there's just a set 875 employer contribution. But in the 25-26, you're varying it per plan.
It's because the slide 12 is based upon 875, that's our current employee contribution, but that was part of the self-insurance plan, that's what we're comparing it to. And what the employer contribution would go to. So that's where the percent increase is coming from.
We covered the entire.
So it's the comparison with the current year to what this plan is and what the percent increase is. So that's what it's intended to do.
So is it, I'm sorry, let me ask that second. So is it correct to assume that if we decided to, let's say, offer PPO8, but we decided that we were only going to still contribute $875 per employee per month, and we would offload the differential of whatever that is, $300, 200 and something, then we would not incur 2.1 million?
That's correct. That's a presuming that we are paying employee only. So like, there's all sorts of options around, like, let's say you guys want to do PPOA, but you say, well, what would the amount be for the employee contribution if we kept the cost the same as HDHP 5 to the district, but, we wanted to have everybody, what would be the cost to buy up or whatever the question is. So I don't know.
In previous years, before, and because I don't know how far back you can go in the budget, haven't we always just had a set amount the district gave and the employee did the rest? We varied it.
Yes.
Yeah, but the
Yes,
set
it's
amount was
based
always
on
based on the lowest,
CEBT.
yeah, the lowest plan that we had to cover.
Out of the 3 offered, it was always the lowest.
Right, so I'm really having a hard time understanding this. Right now, whatever, the lowest amount is 1,052. Why isn't that 1,052 if we did PPO8 and PPO7, why is it 1,125, 1,185 if it's a set amount?
So the answer is that we're still choosing what our base plan is. these are the options for our big
Oh,
plan.
that I
Usually
understand.
you're
Thank
starting to
you.
talk about like after that has been chosen,
Gotcha.
if PPO 7 is the set with the employee only, we're paying 100% of PPO 7. We're saying, well, if we chose,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, yeah.
Autumn, do you remember when we had PPO 6? Was that our base plan or did people contribute?
People contributed to that one. Yeah.
And PPO 7 is our base plan currently?
Yes, it is.
And PPO 7 was our base plan before we switched.
I think so. Amy's the one who added in the HSA.
Yeah.
We didn't have Amy's the one that brought the HSA. That was my last year in IBB. So if you don't have an HSA, because we had 3 PPO plans and we dropped one and added the HSA.
Yeah.
But it seemed to be for a very specific group of employees that if they're only 16.
Like it was like you were required because you had to pay in, you had to do it like that. I can't remember.
Someone probably further along in their career who have money.
They're along in their career, but they don't have money.
So, yeah, it's a
Benefits,
retirement,
it's like an
yeah,
IRA.
yeah,
Using an HSA.
that's it, yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand it
And they
either.
didn't go to it. I sat through the thing and when I left, I went, I don't think that I can do that. So I just remember going, that's it. And so the HSA makes sense, right? It's just. I think what you're asking is, do we have set a precedent for all the years that I know I've been here. That the employer we've had one that's employer has paid.
Yeah.
So. It sounds like I think all of us, all groups, that was number one priority, was it not? Nina, isn't that what we said? That the employer would provide one,
I think our highest priority was co-pays.
the co-pays, okay,
But it
I don't know
has
if
been
it's
a
ranked
huge
that.
priority.
I
for-
think we all just had that one in common.
Yeah.
okay.
I wouldn't, I don't know if I wanna rank them.
It was like top 3 for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and the no cost plan is critically important for our class five
Mhm.
staff.
Yeah.
100%, especially, in school, paraprofessionals and early childhood.
Oh, absolutely.
First couple of your teachers too, whose
Yeah.
salaries are helping a lot.
Whatever X $100 out of pocket, and
Yeah.
that's the difference.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's critically important.
So we could, in theory, let's say we make PPO, and just, this is in theory, make PPO 8 our base plan. And PPO 8 and PPO 7 are fairly similar except for the deductibles. Yeah, other than that, it's almost the exact same plan. And so then. And let's say we offer PPO 6 as as something for staff, and then we could do it. The other H one that I don't know how to say, and that could be a plan, or we could just say we're just gonna do all PPO plans, like that's really what we're looking for in this conversation.
It's whatever, we have to offer 3, right?
If we offer PPO 8 as the base plan, what's the benefit of taking the high deductible?
I guess that you get an HSA, but I think that's why we're all kind of sitting with like, why would someone choose that?
If somebody has an HSA and we stop offering it, how does that impact them?
I wondered that question too. I did wonder.
You get an HSA on your own, can't you?
You can.
You can.
You don't need to have your employer.
You just have to allocate your money pre-tax.
Like, can they pull what they have right now? Are they gonna lose it?
Actually, I think what happens is you can keep it, so you can't add to it. Because you have, in order to add, you have to, but you could keep using it, like you can keep drawing from it, but you just can't add it unless you're on the HDHD plan.
Okay, as long as they're not to lose the money.
Yeah.
No, you're not gonna lose the money.
No.
They're saying we
You
can't.
can hold it.
What is the name about American Fidelity? Like, I remember that.
I
meeting.
still think
We
that
offered.
on the table is then what does the employer pay for everyone? I still think that is on the
Sorry,
table,
say-
what the employer pays. I think that's still on the table, if we go with the precedent of what's been going on for 20.
Because if we say the employer's covering PPO 8, then that is oh yeah, and that's. 2.1.
And I also wonder on top of that, like, if there is. This adds more cost to us, I understand that as a district, but can we look at lowering some of the employee plus spouse, employee plus children, or employee plus family? When we go through and choose our base plan and like try and bring those costs down? And then, I don't know, I think that's an important piece to this as well, of like, can we redo?
See, I think.
And I don't know how they're set,
Require
maybe,
the
but,
employer to
Can
pay
answer
more.
some of
but it would be,
More
it would require us to pay more. And I know, we're not trying to really jack up our costs right now, we're trying to get them down, but that is a priority for families.
I
in our
think that
district.
family plans are of a concern to people because of the cost, but also because people don't realize that they can get it for less expensive elsewhere. I think most families, if they went out on the private exchange.
Yeah.
Can save money. And I think it's like, we've had this conversation over the years about, like, a lot of people used to be on our highest plans. Because they thought, oh, I'm paying less when I go to the doctor, but they didn't realize that they were paying so much more in their premiums and their paychecks every month. That it like cost them a lot more to do that. They thought I'm saving money because I only have to pay $10, a long time ago. I go to the doctor. They didn't like see the whole picture, and I think that's the case with family plans too. I think a lot of families could find that they could get better coverage out for their kids out on the exchange.
If
And
they're
then I
allowed-
wonder.
If they're allowed to, yes.
If that's never been allowed into the last couple of years.
Right, I was just about to say, like, that's gonna, then we have to look at not getting 100% and allowing people to opt out.
So I feel like this is a good time to answer the question.
Yeah.
100% opt-in, because we're switching back to CDBT, are we gonna change the expectation?
I think right now, with CEBT, there is no expectation or commitment for 100% opt-in. Nor do I think that there's a discount, is that correct?
The problem is that what happened is that we went to, declining or that 100% in the past. And so what happened when we did that is that we lowered our cost at that point in time because there was people that fell off of the cost of the district's plan. And then but it also increased the utilization, which caused part of the problem that we are facing. But now for us to require 100% participation at this point in time is then going to increase our cost because we have more lives that we're gonna have to make sure that they're on that minimum plan. So
Is there?
Well, we can just opt out.
Sure.
That's never been an option.
Yeah, and families could always opt out, your kids could opt out.
The employees.
Yeah.
an individual.
Yes.
Get money.
We didn't have to even sign up.
Okay, so it was really for us, just for our sake. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to do with CEBT giving us better rates if we have 100%, it's just.
Well, what would happen is if we did require the 100% participation, then our utilization rates would go down. But that's gonna require us to bring back that employer contribution that we can't afford this year. So that's the conundrum, is that I agree with it lowering rates. I don't necessarily like that we don't have the 100% participation right now. Because our rates are gonna continue to escalate for the people that stay in the plan. You know?
So I have another specific question, which I don't know if we'll have answers to right now, but do we know what the year-over-year increases are based on plan for CEBT? Like, is the increase rate for an HDP plan, is that more in the 10% range and the PPO 7-8 and the 20%? Because we also need to look at projections over the next several years, and if we set the bar right now at PPO 8. And then that's increasing 20% year over year, that's not sustainable. So I think that's something that we need to consider, or should try to get some information from CEBT on. Of what are the annual increases by plan?
But
Is there a
also,
difference?
in the past, our history was with CEBT was Like, we used to have PPO 1, 2, and 3. And then like the next year it would be 2, 3, and 4, and then maybe we'd go 2 years, and then it would be 3, 4, and
Yeah.
5. So pretty much every year, every other year, we were dropping off the highest cost plan anyway in an effort to save money.
Right. But I think that the increase, the rates of increase are so high now. That the way that it compounds every year, like 20% on 2.1 million is much more than 20% on 1.5 million. So I think when we're talking about longevity and the ability to continue to offer this long term, that's
Some of that
information that I'd
isn't
like to know.
included with utilization rates as well.
It is.
Cause
Yeah.
it depended, I remember one year we had
Yeah.
17% on IBB and it was like, holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah.
Then we finally got our utilization rates in and we got them down and I think if one year was like 8%. And we were excited about
We
that.
educated people a lot on like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're paying $20 copay when you go to this dentist or this doctor. If you could not do that and go to this person instead, that every little bit helps. So yeah.
Back to Galen's comment point about like, we haven't discussed the employer contribution. I think it also goes back to where Megan started us. Without full budgets, without understanding if everybody's gonna get some sort of cost of living, it's hard to make a commitment to one of these, because if I say, yeah, teachers can cover, staff can cover 1,000, but then we're frozen or something happens, you know, everybody's not getting cost of living. It's a lot harder to swallow than everybody's getting their cost of living, now we can maybe swallow 1,000 next year. So it's hard, it feels like we're solving this puzzle without a giant chunk in the middle that really informs this decision rightfully.
We grapple with the same situation with the board, with Anna and myself, and, you know, trying to solve these all conjointly, all these problems, but we have been very honest in exactly what those overages look like, and so all we've included in the budget is a cost of living, or not a cost of living, I'm so sorry, a step. That's it, no cost of living, so a cost of living would be more. On top of that, that we'd have an additional deficit, so you can play with those numbers as you guys see fit.
That means a step versus cost of living. Well, it's a
Yeah.
step, it's an hour. It just means you move up, but we don't infuse more money into
Are we
the
gonna
schedule.
allow teachers to keep getting educational lanes? Are we gonna freeze that? Are we, what, well, that's a different step.
I would say right now
We've
that,
frozen that
that
before.
estimate, that 1.2 million to preserve the step includes the lane adjustment. It would,
What about for classified staff? What does it look like for them next year? Because do they have steps too?
they have, their step is like a 1.8.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just a simple, there's not a.
Included as well.
What's that?
That was included in the.
That's that, to get to that 1.2, it would mean that we don't change salary schedules, that people move within them appropriately.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So looking at, to address that question, when I look at slide 3, and maybe just correct me if I'm looking at this the right way. If
the finance.
Sorry, yeah, the finance update slide 3. If we went with PPO 8, which costs 2.1, we'd have to find another 0.5, 0.6 somewhere. And that, so clearly that will, I guess that I understand what you're saying in terms of it's gonna all impact other things. And right now, those are the things that are being presented that would be impacted. So.
Do you think it would be beneficial to, I mean, time-wise, maybe it's not even there, and just like, I hate the word another survey, but like, would it be, I mean, what's important to people, like a step or free healthcare? Right? So it's like, if you, I mean,
It's the same thing, doesn't matter. The same thing, the amount you pay for your premiums. Like, okay, say you get paid, like, real easy numbers, say you get paid $100. And you get free health insurance. You know, no additional cost of the employer pays all of it, versus now you're gonna get, I have my numbers here, now you're gonna pay $20 for your health insurance. But that means you're gonna get paid $20 less.
well, what I was thinking, if it was built into the budget, right, for step increases, whereas we could use that to fund a no cost.
I was thinking along the same lines, like, instead of saying everybody gets their step, which is what percent, I don't know what percent. maybe if it's say what is it, 1.8?
1.8.
Okay, maybe we say everything is 1.7. And the difference between 1.7 and 1.8 is used, is that what you were thinking, is used to try and offset some of that money?
Cause I
So
was like,
people are
it's
still
building.
getting an increase. And the increase that they get is not as big as they expected, but also it's not nothing. And it's closer to what it was they were thinking, but then you have to make that up in the following year.
Right,
It's like
yeah,
additional
that's
money you
what I
have to add in the following year to keep them up.
Yeah, my initial reaction wasn't the same, but then I do think that the increase that you get from a step and the out-of-pocket cost of a plan maybe affects different.
Yeah, I agree.
Cause like in our survey we did, I mean, again, I'm classified, right? So it was like, what is your top priority? And we had health insurance in there, but what we saw come back was job security. So if it meant like a freeze in steps or whatever that looked like, they were in a job, right?
Yeah.
So that's why my mind went there, like if it's built into this budget for the following school year of everybody getting a step, which would be fantastic. However, we're facing this crisis of health insurance at the same time, so it'd be like, if we built that into the health insurance, it would still bring that down a little bit, is what my thought was.
And I think the survey would be great, but I think we'd be very explicit in there of like numbers. For example, if you get your stuff, this is how much.
Yeah.
And this is how much you're gonna pay in insurance. If we reduce your step to 1.7 instead of 1.8 or whatever, this is how much is in your checkbook and this is how much you're paying. Like, I think if we just throw these percentages out, people are like, I don't know, it's too much to think through. So like 3 or 4 real dollar scenarios in there for people to really be able to see and understand.
Just don't know if we need to close that.
I probably won't see.
You know, that's what, there's one thing with that, when we were looking at the real dollar scenarios and all of these different like iterations of, comparisons at this point in time, we were like, this thing would be like 200 pages long if we did all those comparisons. So maybe if we could come up with, some specific comparisons that people wanted to see, that would be really helpful. So that we don't have like paralysis by analysis.
I mean, it is really, just really roughly, and I don't know if this is right, but I took the starting teacher salary at 54,000. The step is gonna be an increase, I don't know, I didn't actually look at salary schedule A, but I don't know if it moves by 1.8%, but if it did, that gets $972 would be the step. And if you asked employees, if we gave HDHP and we told employees it was on them to make up the differential to PPO 8, that cost almost eliminates it, like that differential is about 72 a month, which 864 over the course of the year. So I guess what I'm saying is that like for your starting teacher, if we were only paying HDHP 5 and they wanted PPO 8 to get rid of co-pays and those sorts of things, and we asked them to pay that differential, it pretty much wipes their step.
So it would be more impactful on lower income.
For sure.
I'm very for that reason.
So Autumn asked a really good question, and I think we need to talk about it. I brought it up before an admin IBB. So this really, we've got to make this recommendation to the school board sooner rather than later. So we can get our budgets and we can continue to figure everything out. That's not the chicken or the egg, it's really, right? Yeah, and it's January 14th. It says March, that we need this, but we really need this sooner. Am I right?
I mean, the sooner the better, right? Because if this team says something, you know, we decide that like anything less than PPO 8 for all employees is not tolerable. And whatever that takes, 2.1, up that deficit for 25-26. that does shift, right, where we land in terms of how we're thinking through what we have to do for 25, 26 to close that gap. And so, I think, and it's, I think that's, and it is this like, what moves that then impacts this, and so I think that's why when we had talked maybe a couple meetings ago, the thought of like, here's our three options. If this, you know, like, it's most important to us that X happens, therefore, we, you know, we have to find the two, I don't know, we have to find the 2.1. If there's a little bit more money, invest that in lowering the family cost, or if there's a little bit more money, go provide this option. Like I feel like, and especially in seeing, I mean, 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, when we were looking at that deficit for 25, 26, it was 6 million. We've been able to make a lot of progress there. That's dropped. And like, we're working hard on this, right? There are a ton of groups working on numbers to try to say, how can we shift that? And so some part of me would hope that we might be able to come to some dynamic, like, this is our worst case. We don't feel like we can offer anything less than this. And we're willing to deal with whatever the impacts of that are collectively, creatively, with that. And if we can do a little better, and if we can get through this a little better, it needs to go here. This should be the next option. I don't know if that's possible, but
I would love to go and just like have a little meeting with the two staff at my school and just be like, hey, what if we had this or that? What do you like? And explain it. I'd like to see what people have to say. What if we had, and for me, it would be HDHP and versus 8. I would like to see what people have to say, given the explanation of it.
And could we share this with that and see what they have?
I mean, I think that's, I mean, most of the time. I think that's a really good idea. I mean, I think if we all feel, I think a big part of today was like, we all understand it and talk about it, and we know what the cost benefits are, and we know how to interpret this. And what the big losses are for the option. And I feel like we're feeling closer to that, or at least we could get a buddy who's here. I think that's a really good move for us to now kind of refine the choices that are on the table. We have another meeting planned, I think, in 2 weeks. And that might be really interesting for us to let this sit and simmer and talk to a couple more people. And try to, you know, I think about it just because we were just so recently classified, like, I think I need some, so their interests are very high in my head, and I do want to, okay, now that we've talked about this more deeply, go back to those and try to understand how that group, I think that reflection.
I know it's easier for us, like, it's easier for me to go with my constituents within my school, it's a lot harder. I will still check in with the classified staff at my school, but yeah, it is a lot harder.
I mean, does that sound right for some next steps and some homework, is to like us take this back? I mean, I think what we learned is like slide 12 on the orientation of health insurance is really kind of the money slide. And I think we understand how to interpret that and the costs, and then I think it's the detail, and I'm sorry, we'll work on trying to get one that shows 06, 07, 08, and HDHP 5 all in one place. Because that's, and if we get that, we can get that sent out to people, we might have to manually create it. But that we all step back and have conversations, even. Right.
It honestly seems right, but every school isn't represented.
Right, that's what I'm gonna say.
So I just wonder if like a high level could be shared out in your regular update, and then, you know, at least our names could be shared so that, you know, if people have like a major thing going on, they could hopefully reach out. But also, you know, empower folks.
I would like to see that sharing be something like, here's the situation, here, like, if we had to choose between these two as our base plan, here's what it would look like for a typical salary. I know there's not a typical salary in the district, but you know, like typical
Do you
low,
want
middle,
us
high
to
range
do
salary.
that? Because my constituency is not actually who I'm representing tonight, it's not actually my building. So you guys don't you guys have IBB Thursday?
Yeah.
Is this something that you could
Yes.
add? I mean, I don't know, or if
Yeah,
that,
and we have regular
we all
meetings.
would need to be,
Yeah.
we'd all need to make sure that all the buildings got covered.
I think this to me is even more like, I'm gonna give this to the ARs who are in every building in the IBB and have them do this and then report back to me.
Yeah, you're right, that's a good idea. Because my constituency in our administration, it's
Yeah.
not my building.
You're right,
I wanna know what my building thinks, but Miles and my building might be the right person to get that information,
Exactly.
not me. Cause I'm at
Am
it.
I hearing this right, like, what you're saying on is like train up certified IBB Thursday,
Yeah, and
or,
I don't know if we need to have it on Thursday. I think that's something that we can take on
okay,
and we already have those systems in place and.
I love how you raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand.
Yeah.
I, you know, I know everybody's got like all their stuff and but the one thing that seems to resonate with me is that if we are gonna be talking to employees, I think this is really gonna confuse them. And I think that maybe a one slide thing showing the current rates for employee plus plans, the HTHP, what that would look like, PPOA, what the increase is for the employee per month for each one of those options on one page might be the best option for like information. I don't know what people think.
Isn't that what you said? That's what you
That's what
said,
I
you
was
wanted to say to your staff.
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful. I'm wondering about if I'm an employee who put job security as my top priority. And I don't know how that falls into this. I might say, well, is my job secure? If my job is secure, then I want this. If my job is not secure, then I won't use this if it means I have my job. So I think that might be hard to evaluate without knowing if you like where your other priorities land, if depending on the plan.
thanks, Heather, cause that was such a big piece of what we talked about in classified, is like, if the choices we make are gonna have an unintended consequence of reducing classified staff. Classified staff would not support that. Because job, health, when we asked about all the benefits, health insurance was like the bottom of the list.
Yeah,
Like, people were like, make sure my job's secure, pay me more. And health insurance was much lower.
Well, and in our survey,
super interesting.
that was
Maintaining
Was-
positions.
maintaining positions was also a priority. And so if you're wondering, well, what does that mean? How does this impact that? So I don't know how you get feedback from people without.
But on your survey, you were saying maintaining positions, not administrative. You
said
guys
Yeah.
are position.
We just had one question that really gave what we wanted for us,
Mhm.
the rest were about our staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you talk about it without.
I mean, that could be the question is like additional reductions, or if we can find it, I mean, what's your feedback of this versus this? I mean, is this even something that we could live with for a year, yes or no? Well, maybe it's a high frame question too. Can we live with it because the cost increases are so substantial? They're impactful.
Somehow acknowledging that the cost of the increase has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, but we can't name it, 'cause we don't know. But I think there has to be some sort of asterisk acknowledgement, like knowing if this is the base, that will increase some cost that we have to remedy. To get to your point, like, so
Yeah.
putting in that mind, that person's thing that they are valuing. Might be the thing that would. Really.
So I'm hearing just us grappling with how hard this is. And
Yeah.
I wish we could give a clear picture of all the moving parts and pieces now, and I appreciate everyone's grappling with this uncertainty. It sounds like some things we're sure of is it would help to have a cleaned up plan, like a cleaned up one pager of this that shows the real, all on the same page of what we actually can choose from. That would be helpful. It would be helpful to have, I think, Christie, what you just envisioned of kind of that cost per employee, the differential. Some way that folks can understand that.
And then understanding that that there are other factors involved.
Right. Yeah, cause I think at the end of the day, if it came down to like you said in the beginning, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna do the flat 875, and then anything above that would be employee contribution. I think most people would come back and say, okay, I can contribute $200 or $300 to that and still have a job. Versus being like, oh no, it's important for me to have a zero.
But what if that meant like? I guess we're not looking at the idea of freeze, but say for example, we were looking at a freeze and then coming back with a plan that we had to pay more for, I mean, that's a pay cut.
Right.
And you think that classified would go for that over losing positions or over?
That's what I heard, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you still have a job and you still have the paycheck, right? So it's like, if you're saying, well, it's either that or. I mean, I don't know, that's just what I heard when we talked to classified staff about that, it was like, what is important, it was like a job.
That
You
makes
have to
sense.
have a job.
They're
That
more
makes
vulnerable
complete sense,
positions.
that makes complete sense. I can
So I would rather have my job and maybe pay a couple $100 a month to have a health plan and still have a down paycheck, I guess.
Or opt out and search for a plan.
Yes.
Or opt out,
Yeah.
be able to stick out.
Absolutely. Right.
Well, I just think that's so interesting because I think, so much of our history in the how we've chosen health insurance plans in the past has been because of the classified staff and what we thought was, the classified staff would want to maintain a zero cost plan because of not wanting, of increasing their salary and not then decreasing it.
Right.
To pay for health insurance, so, I mean, I wonder if, I'm just thinking out loud that maybe. I wonder if classified. Maybe is like the key. To this. Their opinion about this.
I agree.
It's an important.
Well, in prior. When we did those, they weren't worried about having a job.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that there were cuts, other than in 2008, and they were significantly impacted. That classified was at those meetings.
I have another question about the other options for people, beyond this plan, that we haven't yet really put together. I think that might be an important piece of this too, for people to understand what are their options if they can't, cause I really fully believe that there would be a lot of classified employees, especially that won't be able to afford putting their family or any employee plus plans. And so I think that that's gonna be, well, what do I do then? I think that answering that question would really be helpful, and I don't know when or how or what, but it's just something to consider.
It's like cut them free, but have it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of custodial staff and nutrition services. Any of this information that's really going out it's really gonna be important that they understand it. Because there's such a language barrier that it doesn't, it's not gonna, they're not, it needs to be very black and white for the Spanish speakers.
So we'll create some information, but take some time to digest and reflect and talk to folks in the next 2 weeks. I unfortunately already sent my email for today and just said that you were meeting, because I was worried you'd go over and I missed 7 o'clock, get it to everybody. But I can certainly send, we can put it next Tuesdays. It says, hey, here's some information. Here's your IBB reps, talk to them. Absolutely that Thursday session that I always have people who come and talk. And then maybe then we sit and simmer and come back in 2 weeks. Is that right? 2 weeks that we come back together? The 28th, right? And keep talking and the world changes. I will just name Christine's updates 3 days ago are different, and maybe things will be a little clearer, and will be a little clearer, and maybe we just keep nudging forward for a little bit. Does that sound okay for now?
Actually, it does. If it's like one of those, I think we need to sleep.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do. I do.
So I will make
I
sure
keep changing my mind.
That we get that comparison and that we get some high level information out to all of you. And then next Tuesday in my email, I'll link it there, and make sure everybody's names are in there. And we'll just keep going. All right?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready.
Thursday.
Thanks, Megan.
He went home with Olivia today, and I was at work, like, doing parent health off, and I got this little text from the dog game. Both me, and I was like, all messed up, because I was coming here and. Oh.